Alexander O'Connor to ask question 49. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to ask question 49/2021 in today's order paper, and it's directed to the Minister for Commerce, Trade, Tourism and Transport. Given that the prolonged border closure and pandemic continue to have a dire impact on the Fijian tourism industry, can the Minister update Parliament on how the Ministry is supporting recovery efforts for the industry? Thank you.
I call on the Minister for Commerce, Trade, Tourism, Transport, the Honourable Faiz Koya. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, sir. So I apologise in advance. The answer is a little bit lengthy, but I think it's best heard. Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank the Honourable Member for the question. Mr. Speaker, sir, last week, Friday, the 19th of March, actually marked 1 year since our first case of COVID-19, and the weeks and months that have followed simply meant that 40% of our GDP was lost. But for all the hardship the year has actually ushered in, sir, it's also given us a unique opportunity to reflect on the future of the industry. The industry and the Fijian government, as always, have come together to prepare, sir. On Friday, Honourable Speaker, sir, at the Fiji Excellence in Tourism Awards, the Honourable Prime Minister acknowledged the industry stalwarts for their contribution to the Fijian economy and how we had laid the groundwork for when the first case finally came to Fiji. Mr. Speaker, sir, we are in a position today because we prepared ourselves even before the first case. We knew it was only a matter of time, and although the suffering we've seen has no dollar value and can never truly be measured in mere facts and figures, we can actually proudly say that we did a great job, sir. With respect to the tourism response team, sir, our preparation is largely attributed to how we've come together as a nation to ramp up coordination, not only as different arms of government, but it's actually been hand in hand with the various industries and the communities and as Fijians. Through the TRT, we've addressed a number of unique issues with respect to the tourism industry. The Ministry of Employment undertook an awareness on how employers should treat leave without pay and better work with the employees. We've also accommodated exemption for marine vessel surveys, which will now be issued for 12 months, and through the TRT, the Industry and Tourism Fiji, we're already working with the Ministry of Health and Medical Services to create awareness and register all the frontline workers and everybody else for when the next batches of vaccines are made available. So, in terms of budget relief, our historic 2020-2021 national budget has undoubtedly been driving force for most of our recovery efforts, sir. The government has directly paid $118 million in unemployment benefit, which has largely gone to the tourism sector, sir. The new tax incentives also in the budget have kept the confidence of domestic investors and tourists alive, and we're actually realizing the benefits. We had our Love Our Locals campaign, and since its inception last year has been a key part of the tourism sector. And what started with only hotels putting out specials for our locals has today encouraged tour and activity providers and transfers as well as restaurateurs to join the campaign. And as of 2 weeks ago, we now have about 200 businesses from every region actually signed up for it. The local tourism market will be part of Tourism Fiji's marketing strategies also, even after the borders open, sir. And based on the growing success of Love Our Locals, we are now embarking on the Pacific as a key source market, and the preliminary focus will be to capitalize on existing leisure segment with the outlook of developing meetings, conventions and events. We've also had the local events fund, sir, and the adaptation of the current local events funds is another initiative we are working on with the business community. Our preparation also includes harnessing our strengths and creating the actual sectoral linkages, sir. And we're looking at supporting our MSMEs and including the requirement of having locally grown produce in the criteria for the funding. And I think this was also mentioned earlier by the Honourable Minister for Agriculture about how we collaborate and get all of these things done. Since the launch of the local event fund, sir, we have supported events including the Fiji Festival in Suva, and the Mosi Marathon, Beach Beats and Eats Leluvia Ocean Swim, the Sustainable Fashion with a Purpose, and Fiji Super 7 series. The other part of it also is the Care Fiji commitment, sir, with Fiji's Care CFC program. We actually received global recognition by the World Travel and Tourism Council. With this recognition, travelers can recognize destinations and businesses that are adopting health and hygiene protocols that are aligned with WTTC's global safe travels protocols. So this may seem just like words, but it's actually a very important component in terms of people making decisions about when travel does open and they actually get to Fiji. So to date, we've registered nearly 200 wellness ambassadors across the industry with about 400 businesses signed up. And as I'm updating this particular house, with the support of the Ministry of Health and Medical Services, we are out actually conducting the second round of the CFC Roadshow. So with the CRMT also, it's now been over 330 days since our last case outside of the border quarantine, and much of the success is actually owed to the Fijian COVID-safe economic recovery framework, under which we've implemented safe entry both for leisure and non-leisure travel. And to date, sir, we've welcomed about 103 yachts, 438 passenger and crew under the blue lanes, and these yachts actually arrive via Port Denra Marina to spread the associated economic activities. We're now working with relevant stakeholders also to see if we can designate Savsavu as an additional port of entry, sir. And as we all know, Savsavu is a wonderful destination for yachties. Mr. Speaker, I had mentioned in August in the House last time that they continue to work with our industry partners to find new ways to encourage safe travel to Fiji. For instance, there's a program called Work from Home, or what we'll term as Work in Paradise. We'll call it Work in Paradise, where visitors who can stay longer and spend more money in the local economy. Regionally also, we've introductory meetings with New Caledonia and Tuvalu's health officials to actually try and explore some quarantine-free travel. And of course, there are a number of variables to consider on this, and at the moment, discussions with New Cal have actually been put on hold, so in light of their community outbreak. And with Tuvalu, we're progressing to share health protocols and COVID-safe protocols to ensure this is done acceptably, and therefore, as the Pacific Pathway is concerned, progress is actually being made. So a couple of weeks ago, so I spoke about Fiji Airways and its partnership with the tourism industry and putting together 150,000 fully inclusive holiday packages in anticipation of borders reopening. This was a result of the $60 million travel stipend commitment by the Fijian government in the last budget, and a quick meeting with Fiji Airways about a week ago, sir. We will be trying to get that done as quickly as possible as soon as the borders open. That's something that's actually quite important to us. Of course, sir, no amount of preparation will ever get the industry back on its feet if we don't have visitor numbers resuming to the pre-COVID levels. And whilst support will continue, we're actually still pushing very hard, sir, despite all the negative publicity with our key markets, Australia and New Zealand, to open their doors to Fiji. And we're hopeful, sir, with the vaccines, we're in a better position to actually make this happen. And tourism is certainly alive and well, sir, and the industry is most definitely a major part of our vital recovery plans, and that has sustained our economic growth for almost a decade. We will succeed, sir. Thank you very much.
I thank the Honourable Minister. Honourable Waikula, supplementary question.
Considering the vaccination and considering the local situation in our market countries, especially New Zealand and Australia, when does the Minister expect things to return to normal?
I'll just give you the floor, Honourable Minister.
So if I had the answer, I'd charge him for it, sir. That's the $100 million question. So there are so many parts to this equation, and I'm sure everybody in this House understands. What everybody must remember is, first and foremost for us, is as priority is the health and well-being and safety of our citizens. And that's it. We start there, sir. So at the moment, with the vaccines that are being made available, once we're all vaccinated, and I urge you all to get registered, so that we can all get vaccinated. Once we're all vaccinated, we are in an even better position than we are now to make our submissions that we can with respect to trying to get Aussies and Kiwis, etc. in. And, you know, and it's not just the Aussies and Kiwis. There are also people in the US who may be able to travel once they get vaccinated. It's all a process, but in terms of a time, Honourable Noe Kula, it's $1 million question, sir. If I had the answer, I'd tell you.
Honourable Speaker, Qantas has announced that they will only fly people who have been immunized. Has Fiji Airways made a similar statement?
If he's asking that question, we obviously haven't, sir. But again, and I know the article that the honourable member is referring to. They did. There's an article in today's, I think, news saying that Qantas is saying that. But what we're doing now will eventually lead to a vaccination passport that people will have to carry. And all of that is part of it. So the mechanics of how we do it, you need to understand, it's not just about getting vaccinated and you jump on the plane. It has to be worked out as to how it's done, because the vaccination has its limitations also. It's honourable registration is one of the other things, and the Honourable Minister for Health has actually laid out how and this vaccine actually works, etc., and how we deal with the other countries. So for Fiji Airways to just turn around right now and say we're not going to fly you unless you're vaccinated would be a bit premature. So we have to ensure that all the other boxes have been ticked before we actually make that decision.
We move on. Third oral question put for today. Honourable